let's sew an inset circle. This is how I've been doing inset circles. I'm pretty new to this. I've only been doing them for a couple years, and honestly, I looked up a YouTube video and I learned it from someone else. So I highly encourage you to check out YouTube tutorials and see how other people do them. I know there's something called like a 6-minute circle. I've never tried that. This is just what I do. And I'm gonna show this to you now, but I always encourage you to like try other options, seek out knowledge on the internet and try different things. Okay, so the very first thing is that we need a square. This is our background square. Now these blocks that we're making for the chaos quilt specifically need to be 8.5 inches unfinished. However, when I sew the inset circle, I find that I tend to not be super accurate with my 1/4 inch seam, so it sucks up some of this background fabric into the seam. So I've cut my square at 9 inches, and that's just so that, you know, I can account for that extra fabric in the seam allowance. And then at the end, once I've got the circle in, I'll trim this down to a perfect 8.5 inch. All right, so first I need to find the center of this, and I've only, all I've done there is iron it this way and this way to find the center point. Then I've done the same with my circle that's going to go in the middle. So now I need to cut a circle out of the center. So here's the math on doing inset circles. You have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, right? So you think, oh, this should be a 1/4 bigger than this one. No, it's 1/2 inch. So it still breaks my brain. I don't know why. So if you're putting in a 4.5 inch circle, then the hole you need to cut is a whole inch smaller. It's 3.5 inches diameter, okay? And that means it's 1/2 inch all the way around. I know it's weird because you think, but that's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Just trust me on this, okay? So we're cutting a 3.5 inch diameter circle out of the background, and we're insetting a 4.5 inch diameter circle piece. So I've got registration marks on this, and I want to line them up with the folds that I created. Here, 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 and here. And I'm just going to trace it, and I'm just using a pencil. I do have other marking tools. I have chalk markers that I like to use, but this is what I found on my table. So we'll just do this. I suppose, because I've folded this and ironed it, I could like fold it in a 1/4 and cut it out, you know, like you cut paper snowflakes. But I've never done that before, and I don't know if I'm going to do that now. But you could technically fold it like this, cut it like this, or fold it like this and cut that out. But I just want to make sure I'm super accurate. So today, I'm going to go in with my fabric scissors and cut out this circle. I don't use a rotary for this. I guess you could, but anytime I do curves, I just feel more confident. If I don't have like an acrylic template to follow, I find I'm just more confident with using scissors. Although I've had a lot of coffee today, so I'm like kind of shaky. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna cut out this circle and then I'll show you the next step. All right, I have my circle cut out, and there's my inset circle that I need to put in here. And then I have to grab my pins. I do a lot of pins on this one. Sometimes I use glue for glue basting curves, but I just find pins work for this. I will also say the smaller the circle that you're insetting, the more like finicky it is when you get it to your machine. So if you're doing a larger circle, that's even better. You know, any kind of curve piecing, the larger the curve, the easier it is to ease through your machine. This one is not so bad, but it can be a little finicky. So this is going to go underneath here. And see how I've got the folds on my circle as well? Those are like registration marks. Okay, we're going to line those up. I'm going to take this and fold it down. And so this line, we want to match with this line. Okay, and I'm going to put a pin in there. All right, then we're going to do the same with the other side. So fold this back a little bit so you can see. And this line needs to match with this line. So we'll pull this up, line up those two creases, put another pin in. All right, so now we've got 2 pins in. I know it looks really weird and awkward. It is, but it works. Okay, so we've done the 2 sides. Now we're gonna do these 2, top and bottom. So this fold down, match those 2 creases, put a pin in. All right, and then as you can guess, we just keep adding pins until we feel good enough about taking it to our machine to sew it. This one, this one. So we put at least 4 pins in, right at the four quadrants of the circle. Okay, so it looks something like this. Kind of funky. But now I'll probably, and you could also add, you know, creases here and here if you wanted to have actual creases to line up, more registration marks to help you out. I just put in the 4. Now I have to get this out here, and this is where we just keep adding in more pins. So see how this outer piece, it stretches a little bit. It's got some give. That's good because you want to be able to stretch it and kind of ease with your fingers to get those 2 pieces to line up. I like to add 1 more here and then 1 on either side of that, and that should be good enough. And then when I'm sewing at my machine, I'm using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm just like taking my time at the machine to sew that seam allowance. You will see when you're sewing that your fabric will, so there's 1/4, okay? When you're sewing, you'll see that sometimes, you know, your fabric might fold like this. That's okay, as long as that fold isn't going under your presser foot and getting caught in your stitching, it'll be fine. If it does get caught in your stitching, when you open it up, you'll have like a little pinch, right? But just adjust. So keep your needle down, lift up your presser foot, adjust this as you go. Make sure you're not getting folds while you're stitching, okay? Let's have a look at how that looks. I'm at my machine. I've got so many pins in here, but that's okay. And I'm ready to start stitching. Now, if you've got a 1/4 inch flange foot, go ahead and put that on. I have one for this machine, but I like to challenge myself today and try not to use it. So I've got this one machine where I'll be stitching 1/4 of an inch along here. So first we're gonna just get this under our presser foot. Make sure those 2 pieces are both under the needle. Put this down, and then we're just going to start stitching our way around the circle. We'll do a little lock stitch. Okay, and here we go. So you can see some of the fabrics, sometimes the 2 fabrics come apart, separate from each other. So I just use my nail as much as I can and go around. Now, also, I'm the kind of person who pulls my pins out as I sew. Some folks don't. And, you know, we're all adults. You make that decision whether or not you want to do that. I don't like the idea of potentially hitting a pin and my needle breaking and going up into my eye or something, but whatever. I wear glasses, so I've got that extra protection. Okay, so you can see here, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. There's a little bit of it's hard to see. There's a little bit of a fold in my fabric, and I know that my needle's going to catch it. So my needle is down, and I want to just pull this up and just zhuzh it out of the way. There, I've straightened it. I've removed that little fold, that little pleat, and so now I can continue stitching and I won't have a little pleat in my circle. So it is a little time consuming to do these, but I think once you get the hang of it, they look great. There are other options for doing circles. You can absolutely do like applique circles. So whether it's raw edge applique using some kind of a fusible like steam-a-seam, or a turned edge circle, those look wonderful too. But it's always good to learn a new technique. I'm still not perfect at doing, you know, inset circles, but I like to challenge myself once in a while and just, you know, try something new. Okay. Sorry, I'm making you watch me. So the entire thing, and I'm not going to speed it up because I want to show, you know, how long it actually takes me to do this. Because I've been quilting for over 10 years, probably close to 15 now. And it still takes me time to do some things, and that's okay. All right, so again, I'm just gonna zhuzh this a little bit, go a little further, pull the pin out. Luckily, you can see I'm not reaching up to lift up my presser foot. I have a Juki that's got like a knee lift, and I never used to use knee lifts on my other machines, but it really, once you get used to it, it really does come in handy. Okay. Whoop. See, I hit that one. I hit that pin. Not great. I don't like that sound. Okay. Speedy Gonzalez over here. Zhuzhing along. Almost there, almost there. We're so close. Okay, last little bit. Last little bit of this, what's gonna be hopefully a pretty decent looking circle. All right, here we are at the end. Woo, nice. Do a little back stitch and take this out. Now, I can already see there's one tiny, see how this looks folded? But once you iron it, it'll iron flat. So let's just zoom out for a second. So you can see it looks a little bit puckery there, but once you iron it, it will iron flat. I recommend ironing the seam towards this outer piece because that way this circle will lay nice and flat. Okay, I'll iron it up and show you. If you were, say this is white fabric and this is dark and you don't want, you know, dark fabric showing through, then you would want to iron the seam inwards. But likely to get it to lay flat, you need to just clip it. So you do some clips, you know, like garment making, you do little clips like this, not all the way to the stitch line, but pretty close, and then it'll lay flat. Okay, all right, let's iron this up and have a look. Okay, here's my finished inset circle. I've noticed two things. One, there's some random mark here that I don't know what that is, but maybe it was on my machine. Luckily, this is just scrap fabric, so it's not something that's going into a quilt. And I recommend, if you are trying this for the first time, like, use some scraps. Don't use your precious fabric. Try it out first, and then jump in. The other thing is, I did get a pucker here, so I did get one fold. How annoying. So I could go in and, you know, rip this stitch and fix that, which I might do, but maybe I won't bother because this is just a scrap one anyway. Anyway, I have also ironed to this outer piece, and I was having some issues. This wasn't really laying flat, so I clipped edges like every ½ inch or so. I just clipped the edges so that it would lay flat. And now also I know that this is not 8½ inches, it's a little bit larger because I cut that background square at 9 inches, right? So I want to make it 8½. So what I've got here, I've still got some registration marks. If you don't, you can just fold, find the center of your block. And I'm going to do this on the back side, just because I might actually use a little marking tool so I can see through my ruler X marks the spot. So I've made a little, there's a little mark for the center. And I'm going to take my big ruler. So half of 8.5 is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So, and I've actually already marked it with tape. 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. That's my center mark that I want to line up with this center here. The other thing you could do is line up 4 1/4 with a fold up here and 4 1/4 with a fold there. But I've got this all marked. I'll lay this down like this, 4 1/4, just double check here. Okay, that's centered. I'm going to trim this off. All right. And I'm just going to rotate this around, do the same thing. 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. I also talk to myself a lot when I'm measuring things, making sure everything's even. So I cut 2 sides. I need to cut these other 2 sides, just making sure 4 1/4 here, 4 1/4 is lining up with the fold here, and I've got this 4 1/4 point is lining up with my center that I marked. So this should be 8.5 inches. And that circle should still be in the center of my block. Okay. It looks pretty centered. Yeah, nice. Okay, so there you go. That's an inset circle. I encourage you to try this method out. Look up other different methods for sewing inset circles. Try applique circles, whether it's needle turn, raw edge. Circles are fun and they look great in quilts. Okay, it's a good thing to have in your quilty skill box.